Everybody. It is so nice to see you all, or at least see you all virtually. So today we're going to talk about field maps and what a lot of fun it is to collect data in the field with your smartphone. This again is one of the workshops brought to you by the UCANR Informatics and GIS program. That's what we are all a part of. We are part of UCANR, which is the University of California Division of Agriculture and Natural Resources. We're a statewide network of cooperative extension advisors and specialists on campus and professional and academic staff throughout California. We do applied work and try to connect that University of California research to communities to help improve their lives. And one of the ways that UCANR does this is through a series of statewide programs. Some of you might have heard of 4-H or CalFresh or UCIPM. Those are all UCANR statewide programs, and there's several others. And one of them is ours, the Informatics and GIS program. And our vision, our mission is to help those in the University of California who need to integrate cutting-edge geospatial tools into your everyday work. So that's why we're doing these workshops. We're thrilled to have you here. We love your feedback, and we've got 2 more workshops this year. If you're interested, one is on using Jupyter Notebooks, which is a coding solution that you can use within ArcGIS Pro. It really makes things a lot easier and smoother. And then the final one of the year is cartography and design, how to make the most of ArcGIS Pro to make beautiful publication quality maps, as well as maps that might go into flyers or handouts. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Who are we? We are IGIS. Me, Maggie Kelly, I'm the director. We've also got Sean Hogan. He's going to be leading the workshop portion. Many of you already know Sean. He's a remote sensing expert, fantastic guy. And then as support crew, we've got Andy Lyons, Shane Fire, Robert Johnson, and Ben Satzler. They're there to help you. So if you have problems, put them in the chat. If they're severe enough, we can pull you into a breakout room and see what's going on. But we're here to serve you and make this a rewarding and fun Friday afternoon. Who are you? You guys come from all over. We've got folks internationally as well, but the bulk of you, as with a lot of our workshops, are from California, a nice spread of folks. But just so we can introduce each other to each other, if you've done one of these workshops before, you know the drill. In the chat, if you could put your name, what you hope to learn from this workshop, and any experience with GIS or field data collection within GIS. 1 meaning a beginner and 5 meaning an expert. And let's let it rip. Let's see what we got here. Introduce yourselves to each other. It's always fun to see who is Paulina, first out of the gate. Love it. Field maps. Yeah, that's what you're here for. Terrific. Anybody else? Chris. Yep. 2-ish. Yeah. Okay, good. Aaron, level 3. Terrific. Field maps in a group. Ujai. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing your name right, but ooh, great. 4 out of 5. Love it. Julia, you're in Santa Barbara. Field maps haven't used the tool yet. Great, level 3 GISer. Love it. Terrific. Hey, Sue, nice to have you. Field maps to visualize interdisciplinary data too. That's great. I know there's a few others of you out there. Tell us about yourself. This will help us customize what we're going to be doing. Great. Susan, 1, update some older skills. Constantly, I'm constantly doing this. Alex, great. Mel from the desert, you've started using field maps, terrific. Okay, Adrian's used the collector app. Is that the old version? We'll talk about this a little bit. Fantastic. We've got some folks coming in. Terrific. So we have folks spanning, everybody from super beginner to expert, which is really great. We love this. Ryan, hi. A 2 question mark. I love the hesitancy. We're going to get you up to 5 by the end of this workshop, Ryan. Anyway, I'm going to keep the chat over to the side.
I'm not sure I understand.
Oh, that is my watch. this watch is been yelling at me every day this week. So I apologize. Ignore her. I will. Great. Leo, terrific. Okay, I'm going to close this actually, and let's keep moving on. So that's who you are. Great. We'd love to have you. So why field maps? So this, you might be here because you want to collect GPS data in the field. We saw that in the chat. You want to collect points, lines, polygons, and add some specific content as you go. What's the tree species? What's the condition? Those sorts of things. You might want to add records to a related table for existing features, go out in a monitoring program and go, through time, add information about a particular site. You want to use your mobile device in the field. You want to collect geo-referenced photographs in a streamlined way without a lot of tediousness. You want to be able to work offline on occasion out in the field. You want to bring that data you collect back to a database for analysis. And then you want to make gorgeous and useful web maps and web apps that take advantage of your field data. And you want to do this all easily and not have to tear your hair out every time you try to bring all these data together. So that's why you do use field maps. What field maps does not do well, it's not a great navigation tool. It's not really built for this. So you don't typically use field maps to go out and, track a route to something. It's not a great citizen science or participatory tool because it requires an organizational license. It's really designed for members of that same organization to collect data together. There are lots of great options for participatory or crowdsourced data. Esri Survey 123 is a good example. And if you want to talk about the, kind of the nuances of this, feel free to put them in chat. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to give you a quick example of some of my recent field map obsessions. Then we're going to talk about the Esri ecosystem, a little bit about how, when we're working in the cloud, what we need to pay attention to with web maps and web apps and data, and then what the workflow looks like and some examples of what it's going to look like in the field, including the use of an external GPS if you want to. And then we're going to kick off the fun workshop. All right, no questions in the chat. You guys holler if there are any ever. Okay, so these are a couple of web apps I've made. They're the same data. It's collected on my phone out in the field. I started last February. I guess it was this February, time is a blur. These are a couple of them using the same data of my pandemic obsession, which is walking around Berkeley and tracking where I'm going. I live in Berkeley, I work in Berkeley. So to learn field maps, I started this kind of project, and I just thought I would show you just a couple of examples. So the first one, I can get my Zoom thing out of the way, is this one. Can you guys see this? Yes, green line?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so this is a web app. This is the city of Berkeley. All those green lines are, just me using tracks, but it's a great way to put in a web map. You can build these bookmarks that zoom to certain places. All of these purple dots are beautiful geo-referenced trees. I did this in the springtime when I was super into the cherry trees. So really love this. It's been a lot of fun. I started customizing with this ArcGIS, I call this the ArcGIS version. So this has a different base map. The symbology of these things are different. The lighter the color, the more recent the walk. But all of these are interactive. So I can configure these pop-ups. I can say what's going on here. I can add an external website to that. All this stuff is done through customizing the web maps and the web apps. So it's really it's a lot of fun. Obviously, this is kind of a hobby thing. You guys are thinking about this for your, proper science work, but, I encourage you to kind of, think about this broadly. All right, so that was a very quick tour, but everything I just showed you was all built using the Esri platform. And the Esri platform, the Esri ecosystem of software, is based around a desktop version, which is ArcGIS Pro, and a cloud version, which is ArcGIS Online. And you go back and forth between these a lot. You can just work on desktop and Pro. That's totally fine. You can stay just in ArcGIS Online. That's totally fine. But if you're going to be doing the field map stuff, you're really going to be relying on ArcGIS Online heavily, because the field map apps that we're going to talk about here reside in ArcGIS Online. The web maps and web apps that I just showed you were built using another Esri app called Experience Builder. And we're going to go into that a little bit, but this is where you're situated. You're situated within the Esri ecosystem. And that ecosystem has a lot of other options. These are, there's many apps associated with ArcGIS Online. Story maps, many of you are familiar with. Field maps we're going to talk about today. We touched on Survey 123, Experience Builder, but there's lots of other things like Dashboard and Living Atlas, and all of these kind of plug in, and they all deal with data, spatial data that's either from your desktop option or version, or from your ArcGIS Online version. So let's look at these again a little bit. As I said, everything in Esri is built around the local desktop option, which is ArcGIS Pro, and the ArcGIS Cloud, the cloud option, which is ArcGIS Online. You can go back and forth between these all the time. They have different strengths. The strengths starting at the bottom of ArcGIS Pro are, if you're really into cartography and design, it's a lot more control in Pro. If you're really into projection control, you want to work in Pro. If you want to do advanced analysis like image processing, spatial modeling, working with UAV data or LiDAR data, you're going to work in Pro. Although this is changing, Esri is really pushing some pretty advanced stuff up into cloud. And then reproducibility and coding, traditionally you would stay in Pro, although, like I said, this is really changing. And I'm sure if we give this workshop in a year, this slide will have to change. Then at the top, ArcGIS Online, its strengths are really its speed, it's intuitive, it's browser-based, so you don't need that license file. It has a lot of simple analyses, links to loads of apps like we talked about with field maps. You can create these web maps and web apps. It's really a fantastic place to play around. I used to think you always had to go to Pro, but I'm increasingly thinking you can do a ton of stuff in ArcGIS Online. So the fact that we are moving from the desktop up to the cloud means we need to think about some things about doing GIS in the cloud. And so when we're working with ArcGIS Online, there's lots of options that we didn't necessarily have with desktop, and there are some constraints. And so some things we need to pay attention to are data. What are data formats in the cloud? Sharing, who can see our data and our work, because on the desktop it was just there. Projections, things can get a bit loosey-goosey up in the cloud with respect to projections. Products, we can make these web maps and web apps easily in the cloud, but what are these things? Analysis, there's still much more options to do analysis in the desktop version. Like I said, that is changing. And then visualization, what sort of symbology do we have access to in the cloud? So let's take a couple of these just quickly. Let's talk about data. This is our foundation piece of all the GIS work we do. And when we work on the desktop, when we work locally, we're typically talking about these legacy historic spatial data formats like the Esri shapefile, the geodatabase, the grid. Many of you are familiar with these. You send each other shapefiles zipped up. You might get a geodatabase to work on, which is, the most current spatial data, Esri spatial data file format. But in the cloud, we don't talk about these formats anymore. We talk about data as layers that come with services. Layers are the data bundled with the symbology, and services are the instructions on how those things can be used. And so Esri obeys a lot of open standards, but they have their own way of defining these layers and services. So like I said, layers are the data themselves, the vectors and the rasters, and the symbology applied to them. We're going to be working mostly with feature layers. Those are vector data, points, lines, and polygons that you're collecting in the field. But there are cloud layers that are raster layers, like an image layer or an elevation layer or a web imagery layer. There are also scene layers. Those are optimized for 3D. And then there are tile layers. These are the base maps that you can switch on and off at will. And then all of these have instructions on how these data can be used. Can they be just displayed? Can they be downloaded? Can they be analyzed? All that needs to be defined when you're working in the cloud. And just, you're going to get used to this when you jump into the workshop in ArcGIS Online, but there's a big table of contents. And if you can ignore all of this, but you can also look at, there's going to be a list of titles of data, and there's going to be information about the layer and the service. And sometimes you can tell, where did it originate? Did it originate from Pro? Because as a shapefile, it's going to get exported to have a feature layer and its service definition. Or did it originate in ArcGIS Online, in which case the feature and the services are kind of bundled together. So, you'll see this in your table of contents, and you can kind of interrogate it a little bit. But the cool thing is that because there are these layers and services out there, there's so much data you can pull on. There's so much data out there. And if you're working in the Esri ecosystem, the two first places to start to look for data are ArcGIS Online and Living Atlas of the World. Living Atlas of the World is the Esri curated data set. These are chosen, sort of, picked and curated, and really gorgeous stuff. ArcGIS Online is everything everybody who's interacting with ArcGIS Online has put up. So there's lots of stuff, and sometimes the provenance of those is questionable, but it's really good to check it out and see what others have posted. A couple other things to think about in the cloud: projections, and just review back to intro GIS. A projection is just the transformation that takes that spherical shape of the Earth, which isn't really a sphere, it's an ellipsoid, isn't really an ellipsoid because it's sort of bulgy and irregular, and flattens it out into a two-dimensional surface, which introduces distortion and stretching in some cases. And there's no perfect way to do this. There's no perfect way to take a 3D surface and transform it to a 2D surface. So there's thousands of projections worldwide, and countries have their own projections. Our state, California, has its own projection. The globe has its own projection. When we work on the web, we often work in something called Web Mercator, which isn't really great for analysis because it does a lot of that stretching we talked about before. And so, like I said before, if you're really interested in holding on to fidelity in your projection and having good control, you need to pull it down into Pro for the most part to do some of your work. So just pay attention to that. And this is what this slide is talking about for. If you're really interested in controlling the projection of your data set because you need to do some measuring or modeling on it later, you might think about creating your data in Pro and then uploading it to ArcGIS Online. One last thing to think about in the cloud is sharing. Like I said, we didn't need to think about that when we were working locally with with Pro, because it was just there. But now you have the option to, because everything's in the cloud, you can you can define your sharing options. You can say, this is only going to be seen by me. This is going to be seen by my organization or a group within my organization, or this is going to be public. And Esri it's a great interface that they've set up that allows you to do this. But the general workflow of what we're going to be doing is we can either just stay in ArcGIS Online, and that's what this slide is going to look at. We're going to work with an ArcGIS Online native hosted feature layer, which is a vector layer. We're going to do some configuration to allow it to accept GPS points. We're going to do some detailed work in field maps within ArcGIS Online to configure the databases that'll accept data. We're going to put that into a web map, and then we're going to, in the field, pull that web map onto our smart device and use the field map app to start collecting data. We also could start with Pro. You could create data in Pro. You might already have data in Pro that you want to add to or you want as reference. You're going to export that to ArcGIS Online so it turns into a feature layer. You're going to configure it, work with field maps, put it in a web map, and then use it in the field. It's very, very simple, and that's what we're going to walk through in lab. One little quirk, and Sean's going to talk about this, is everything relies on this web map. And so Esri has a lot of ways, they have ways to create that web map. And confusingly, the web map, they used to have something called the web map viewer, which is pretty basic. And then they decided we wanted something special called a web map beta. And that beta has now emerged from beta. And so it took the name Web Map Viewer, and what was Web Map Viewer became Web Map Classic. So if you did this like 6 months ago, this will be a bit of a shift, but follow along with the workshop with Sean. We're going to stay with Web Map Viewer, which is the new version. Yep, that's what this slide said. But before I turn you over to Sean, I did want to show you what this looks like in the field. So this is just a snapshot from my phone. There's field maps loaded onto it. I open up field maps. I find that web map. I say, ooh, press that add data button. I like to go in streaming mode, which is just collecting a point every few seconds. That can be customizable. Just turn it on, start walking through the streets of Berkeley. It gives you information about the GPS accuracy. You can set tolerances for that GPS accuracy. And if that accuracy, goes higher than that, you won't be able to collect a point. So you can customize all of this kind of stuff. Super easy to take a photo. You just, there's just a button, add that photo. That photo gets automatically geo-referenced and it's going to be loaded into your data set when you come back to the office. I mentioned that the phone, you're out there and it's using the phone's GPS, which isn't always going to be perfect. It does, it really will vary as you move through cities, especially. And so you can think about having an external GPS along this to add to your phone. The GPS options, there's standalone GPS options. These are survey grade, 1 meter accuracy. They're pretty expensive. There are also kind of hybrid options where you have the antenna, and Trimble makes this possible with a subscription service where you pay money to get better and better accuracy. But there are also very inexpensive external Bluetooth connected GPS devices out there. I love these Bad Elf ones that range in price from about $300 to higher, and the higher you get, the better your accuracy. But I love them. They're great. Start with the $300 one if you can. They really do make a difference. But don't forget your external battery, because these things are a power hog. So if you do have an external battery, it's very simple. You just say, instead of my integrated GPS on my phone, I want to connect to this thing that it found out there because of Bluetooth, connect to Bad Elf, and start walking around. Yeah, I can get about an hour and a half on my phone, but so I always have my external battery. And it makes a difference. This is just a simple example. This is the route with the phone's internal GPS. You can see it bounces around sometimes, and the external GPS just tracks a nicer, cleaner line. Then you've gone out, you've done your work, you come back into the office. Your web map has already been updated with all this new data. You can create a web app with this, like I showed you before. In Pro, if you pull it down from the cloud, this will be updated as well. If you edit your data in Pro, you're going to need to save that file so that it'll update again in the cloud. And then once you're back in the office, you can say, okay, let's look at my web map, all this new data that I just gathered. Now let's push it to this thing called Experience Builder to create a web app. And we'll go through that in the workshop. So on to the workshop. Sean, I don't know if that's true anymore, this link. So I'm going to stop my share and turn it over to you.
Hey, Maggie and Sean, can I add one thing?
Yes.
Yes. Maggie, that was a great overview. I just wanted to make one minor adjustment. One thing y'all should know is that Esri is working on building in the ability to navigate to a location.
Great.
And it's due out here either late winter or early spring.
Terrific update. Shane is our Esri whisperer. It keeps us up to date on all the crazy stuff that they keep changing. So much appreciated. Mm-hmm. All right. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sean.
All right. Just one second. I'm getting my tabs arranged. So the first part of what I'm going to cover is going to be mostly just an overview of the apps and some guidance on how to set up your windows so you can see what we're doing here. I know it's extremely challenging for most of us that are working on laptops to be able to see both my screen, see your screen, and the directions all at the same time. It gets to be pretty cumbersome. I know that there's a lot of familiar names and some people that we've worked with over the years here in this group. We saw from earlier, there is a wide range of experience when it comes to this stuff. So it'll be easier to follow through some of the buttons and levers than for one person than another in some cases. But what I would like to do to start off is just how I prefer to set up my screens, and I'm going to share right now. And I'm going to turn off my email so I don't get pop-ups while we're in the middle of presenting here. So what I recommend is having your directions, which I'm going to be covering from memory. Let's see if I can get this reduced down enough that I can move it. There we go. I recommend putting the directions over on the left side of your screen. At least this is my preference. So you can refer back to those if there's anything that I covered, or particularly when we get into the breaks. And I'm going to try to include enough breaks for everybody to either catch up, get tech support, re-download apps, reopen what you need to do. There's technical difficulties like sort of IT help that can be provided there with our great team, including Shane Fire, Andy Lyons, Ben Sassman, Robert Johnson, Maggie, that just presented. We're all here for you to help you out, and those breaks would be a good time to do that. With that said, what we'll do is we'll put the exercise, at least I prefer to put it over on the side. It might be covered up a lot of the time. I'll have my main window then in either the center or over to the right side. And I have to crunch that down. That way it's easier to toggle back and forth between them. And then you can place my window wherever you wish, maybe even covering up the directions might be a preferred position, since again, I'm going to be going through the exercise mostly from memory. If you come to the breaks and you want to look back at the directions, they'll help you through the workflow, give you ample enough time. Also, if you have any kind of questions or you're just out of place, don't hesitate to put it in the comments, and we can set up breakout rooms, or we can come back to that on the breaks as well. Good. So what we're going to cover here over the course of the next roughly 2.5 hours is, first I want to give an overview of ArcGIS Online. And I know we're here for a field maps workshop, but that's just a part of the area where the fun happens. What we'll be working with is really truly a constellation of ESRI's apps, some standalone like the mobile app on your phone, some of which will be web applications like ArcGIS Online. We working with a map viewer, experience builder, a web app, not to be confused with the mobile app for field maps, We'll be covering that. And then at the very, very end, just a couple minutes, if anyone's interested, we can cover how to integrate our collection or our map data into ArcGIS Pro, because I know some of you were there for the last workshop on ArcGIS Pro and are interested in that as well. So really what we'll be covering is kind of like five apps here with a focus on how they integrate with field maps. For the next ballpark of 20 minutes or so, I'm going to just go over ArcGIS Online, and then I'll shift a little bit to just a tiny bit of the hands-on stuff to get yourself set up before a break, and then we'll move on to the map viewer and configuring your data for your mobile app. If you have any questions, again, don't hesitate to throw them in the chat. All right. Also, check your email. You should have, about an hour ago, you should have received the directions, or the exercise directions, as well as the presentation that Maggie just gave. So hopefully you have that, and you'll really be needing that. It come about almost a half hour, 20 minutes from now. But for now, so here we go. If you would like to follow along here, you can. Otherwise, just go ahead and just watch what I'm covering, because this is going to be an orientation. I know some of you have done the ArcGIS Online workshops before, or already familiar with it, but this is kind of essential because ArcGIS Online is just your hub for all of your data and your products and management of those sorts of things within, again, the ESRI constellation of online apps. So and with that, I'm going to jump into Gallery first. Gallery is a location where you can find a collection of all sorts of data, both within your organization and outside of your organization. One of the things about this workshop, and one of the reasons why in the directions I sent out earlier this week, mentioned or suggested that you get an ArcGIS Online account through IGIS, is that way you'll be shared within our organization. It'll make it easier for one step that's not essential during this workshop, but will allow you to work with a collaborative map that's set up into that's shared within our organization. If you're outside of the organization, the map that you'll build on your own today, or your collection map, will work fine for you. It just won't be collaborative and going into kind of an enterprise crowdsourced type map. But anyways, Gallery, that's where you can look for all kinds of data layers. Most importantly, for later on, after you've collected features with your mobile app, then you can add these maybe associated layers into a web mapping application that could be public facing, that would be of interest to be put on your website or any other purpose that they can be public facing. Again, that's not going to be that's not going to be a focus of this workshop, but it's always fun to cover that kind of stuff. Moving on, I'm not going to go to, well, map. I will just touch on that. We're not going to really use this today because ESRI or ArcGIS Online is kind of moving toward these peripheral or associated apps, one of which is Map Viewer, that does a lot of the same things that you can do here, but just a little bit more efficiently in some cases. I know if you already have experience with the traditional map way of building your maps, and then we're talking about just the organization and presentations of just the layers themselves. It's configuring pop-ups, some just basic map features, and not the more like infographic type elements like titles and legends and that sort of thing. The map tab is where you just set up your map features and you organize them. But we'll be doing that in Map Viewer. Again, a departure from the kind of I wouldn't say older way to do it. It's but it is a direction that Esri is moving in. If you do want to learn more about this, there's a little bit of a guide when you first open it up under About. Moving on, We cover gallery, scene. This won't be super pertinent today, but I just want to touch on it. This is going to be a 3D interactive map that you can bring data into. You can bring up projects that have already been loaded in there. In this case, this is from our organization. And in these 3D scenes can be imported into your maps later on. Groups. I'm going to skip notebooks right now, even though that's really neat. But it's not going to be, it's not germane to what we're covering today, but groups really are. One of the neat things about this, I said that ArcGIS Online is kind of like the hub of all these peripheral apps. But one of the things that those peripheral apps can refer back to is grouping of participants for project-based data collection. For example, if you wanted a team of people to go out and collect data, you wouldn't want to share those features with everybody in your organization. You most certainly probably wouldn't want to share them with everybody like publicly, because you would have people that weren't trained or have the right I don't know, incentives to be able collecting the data that you could trust that go into your maps. But you can set up core teams or teams of people that would collect, that might be trained to get the features that you want. Sometimes it's fine to have it up to an organizational level, but yeah, beyond that, there's other issues. One of which is that if you share it completely publicly, then people that don't have ESRI licenses can't access the full functionality of field maps. It has to log into field maps, you have to have an account. This is where you can set up groups. I have a whole bunch of groups that I belong to, but you can also create your own groups. I'm going to touch on organization, but it's not super important. This is I put this in here because it shows some of the members of our organization, but it also shows there's places in here that'll show credits. See credits remaining for our organization. As an administrator, I'll see this. As someone that's got a temporary license, you might not see this, but why I bring this up is that anytime you upload data or you do any kind of analytical process in ArcGIS Online or any of the peripheral apps, it eats up credits. Not very fast. Most operations are they don't consume any credits at all. But if you're trying to geoprocess, like, I don't know, a million addresses, that will eat up credits, and that's an issue. We set a limit on our counts, but just know that that is a factor. Not usually a big factor for most normal uses, but it is something that's there. Finally, I'm going to go to content. Not quite finally. I got one more thing I was going to show you too. Content. This is where we're going to actually jump off and start our creation of our features for our project today, or for our exercise today. But before we do that, I just want to give you an overview of some of the things that are in here. If you're brand new to ArcGIS Online, you're not going to have, I don't even know how many, just tons and tons of layers that I've built up over time in my content. I also have created folders, which is something I recommend. Specifically, I set up a folder for our field maps training. So I can click that to narrow down this kind of glossary of types of data that are available. Some of those data types include web maps. That would be something that would be within the map, or the map viewer that we'll be using. It's just a basic map without any of those extra elements I mentioned, like legends and so forth. There's feature layers that are hosted. Hosted meaning that it's more fully functional. If it's not hosted, then that indicates that you can't do editing. You can't even, in some cases, copy those layers. They're just kind of like a background layer almost. There's ways around that. You can bring them into your project and copy them through some little analytical workarounds, but needless to say, the hosted feature layers is are things that you'll usually be wanting to work with. Features typically refer to vectors. So you have like a point, line, or polygon, or in this case, this actually has a group of those types of features. We'll be getting to that in a little bit. In web map, hosted feature layers, if I was back in if I was higher up in all of my content, you'll see other things like web experiences. Those are from Experience Builder that are kind of the more full-fledged, like almost like web page design maps with all of the infographics and widgets and so forth that you can add to them. You can have story maps, which is a template of something that sounds like a web map but isn't, is a web mapping application. A story map and a web mapping application are very analogous. These two types of those again are kind of like more full-fledged, sometimes web page-esque designed like map presentations that can have all kinds of things from inserted photos, journalistic text in the case of story maps, but they're essentially templates that you can use, and we'll explore that in the Experience Builder later on in the workshop, that will that'll allow you to add all kinds of different functionality and often interactive functionality to your maps. I know I'm not going to cover all of the different things that are in here, but I just want you to know that these are options. Something you can do sometimes is you can check these, star them to add them to your favorites, because then it makes it easier to discover them later on. And I'll also, when we go saving our features, I'll show you how that you must put tags onto any kind of created features so they're more discoverable for yourself as well as your colleagues or just the general public. All right. I said this was almost the last thing I was going to show you. The next one is going to be the shortcut button up at the top right-hand side. As long as you have this horizontal bar across the top, and the difference is if you happen to be in map, you won't have that horizontal bar. You'll have to get out of it. You'll have to go back up to either home or contents, but one of the other. As long as you have this horizontal ribbon across the top, you should have this shortcut button, a cluster of dots. And if I click on that, you'll see the constellation of associated apps that I mentioned before. You can grab these and rearrange them. Will be, in fact, the order that we'll be working with these today is going to be Map Viewer, Field Maps, and then Experience Builder. But there's also Story Map Builder. There's an ArcGIS, another tab for ArcGIS Online in case you just want to have open another session that to look at your content while you're working in one of these other apps, as well as Survey 123 and all these other really cool apps that each of which could entail a whole workshop in themselves. I'll cover the map viewer here in a little bit, but right now I'd like to take a pause and check to see if everyone has been able to set up an account and to log into ArcGIS Online. And again, any questions, let me know. Look at the chat. Is there anyone that has trouble getting into ArcGIS Online? So if you could open up ArcGIS Online now, if you you might have a new account that was just given to you, just let us know if you can't get on. Shane and Robert are administrators of our ArcGIS Online accounts, and they can help you out, get you set up really easy. All right, so I'm not seeing anybody that's having trouble. So what I'd like you to do is open up ArcGIS Online if you haven't already done so, and go to content. So this will be the beginning of the hands-on workshop stuff. And after we do the next set of steps, short steps, then we will take a break and come back to the map viewer in the next workflows. Once you're in your content, what we're going to do is go up to new item at the top left-hand corner of your screen and click on this. Once you're in here, we want to go down to create feature layer. This is where you can create other types of, you can see location and applications, but feature layer is what we'll want to do now. And click on this. So you'll have a bunch of options here, but particularly we want to build a layer. So that's the second one down on the left-hand side. I'll pause here every so often, or I might hop back like I'll do right now, because I know that some people might have been busy trying to bring it up. So I'll just go through that workflow one more time. Go to new item in your content, feature layer. So on the left side, click build a layer. And then we're going to select point lines and polygons. I kind of alluded to this earlier when I was talking about some of your hosted feature layers might be a combination of points, lines, and polygons. And that's what we're going to have here. All in one feature layer, we're going to have a set of point lines and polygons. So we can select this and then click create. So we're going to have, when this comes up, you'll see all of these are checked. You can uncheck, say, polygon. If your project doesn't have any interest in collecting polygon features, you can uncheck that for now. We can just leave it checked. You'll also have the radial boxes to select capture GPS receiver information. Sometimes this is important. I wouldn't suggest checking it right now. It'll add a whole bunch. When you collect these layers, they're going to have an associated attribute table that goes with them. And those attribute tables along the top on the column headers, they're going to have fields for different things, elements or attributes of the features that you're collecting. Some of those might be, in the case when we create this layer or we adjust this layer further, are going to include the type of tree information, comments, but you can add more fields for your GPS receiver information, like how accurate it is, if it's and all kind of other elements about your GPS. We don't really need to do that right now. Sometimes that's more important if you're connecting your phone to something like a bad elf, where it's augmenting your GPS positioning, and then you might want to have that GPS information for really precise positioned data collections. Not important right now, so don't check that, but check Z values. There's no harm in that. All that does is add an elevation, typically above mean sea level in meters, field to your data collection. And this will only pertain to your point layer. The line and polygons won't get Z values. So it has an X and Y, X being your longitude, Y being your latitude, and then Z being elevation. And then click next. So just this and next. So when we create the feature layer, we want to have essentially the zoom level for this new hosted feature layer, more or less the extent. You can have it centered on the United States. It's fine. We're not going to be collecting tree data, which is kind of the topic today. Out in the ocean, so just having it centered, you could have it just centered on California, but some of the folks in this workshop might be across the country. So I'm going to just leave it more or less centered here, just so the area where you might be collecting your data is actually shown. And then click next. All right, let's give it a title. And I don't recall what the title of this was. So what I will do is I'm going to bring up my directions, zoom up to the top, and scroll down to where we're at. This is all the stuff we just talked about. And set the extent, fields. Oh, okay. Okay, here we are. Polygon points lines, choose extent next. You can field maps training is good enough. So in this case, I've done this enough times, I'm going to change it to something else. But for you, go ahead and type in field maps training. It doesn't have to be that specific. I don't know, 5.0 for me, just for another versioning. And so we can adjust these, rename this and so forth later on, but it's just for now, we want to have it so it's easily found when we're working on in the apps that are associated with this later on. I also mentioned to tags, and this is really important. Well, it's required. In my case, it automatically puts in, it's a data collection app because this is what this feature layer is designed for. But you might want to add in other tags. In my case, I'm going to put in junk because I create so many files for workshops that I have to have a tag for junk so I can find all that the accumulation of all those layers and jettison them once in a great while. But there's but that's something I could also enter training. If you were going to do this for real, you might say trees. And then once you put in, if it doesn't have an existing tag, you just click enter to get it to add into your tags. That's a question we get sometimes. If you'd like, you can put in a summary. I don't know. There's something called metadata in GIS, and it's really a lot of GIS people, including myself, well, virtually everybody, it don't put in metadata as often as they maybe should for some projects, but this is where you can put in metadata. Metadata is data about the data. So if you can explain like the collection or what it's about, all that kind of stuff about what the intent or the use of this feature is going to be. So we don't have to fill that in right now. Lastly, if you created a folder specifically for your data when we were in ArcGIS Online, or well, we still are, when we are in the contents tab, like I did for field maps training, I can designate the location of this to be put in that folder and then click done. So everybody get that title, some kind of tags that are intuitive, and then give a folder if you would like. If not, don't worry about it, and click done. This is going to take a minute. Cool. I see someone's excited about the native trees of California feature layer. So this is not going to be a robust collection and an accurate collection of all trees that are in California, but I did build a layer out for this workshop that we can collaboratively input data for just the fun of the outside exercise. As an example of something you could do with any kind of feature that you're interested in. And what I'm referring to is a comment in the chat, which is, any comments and questions, all welcome. All right. So once this has been created, then this is in your content. And here, let me, I got to move my Zoom windows out of the way so I can actually see the buttons I need to see. So this field map training 5.0, if I go to my content and I go to my field maps training folder, you'll see that's listed at the top, being the last layer that was created. And if I click on that, it'll bring me back to that page where I was just at, where it has all this information about this layer. This is where you can adjust all kinds of different things about this layer, but I think it'd be better to take a break for, say, give us a 10-minute break to before we dive into the next step. I don't want to fire hose you with too much stuff at once, and we have time. So but this is where we'll be able to start adding table attributes and other things before we bring it into map viewer. All right. Again, any questions, throw them in there. If you have any tech support needs, please ask. This is a good time because we're gonna keep pushing on soon. Let's see. Susan, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Are we supposed to be able to enter characters into that folder designation field? I have a hunch that the next step of that we're going to cover when we come back was going to cover what you're asking about.
Sean, maybe she means when you saved it on that folder, on that where you just set up tags and everything.
Yep.
I think it's where you want it saved.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what they were referring to.
Oh, okay, great.
And Susan, even if you don't get it, when you first save it, it'll save it in your content. If you don't choose a folder, you can always go to your content pane, select that item and move it to a folder after.
Got it.
And on that content page, you can also, Sean, if you don't mind real quick, go into content. There's actually a way in the upper left-hand corner where you can create a folder.
Yep, right here.
And then you can just move it to that folder if you have to.
Yeah, I did gloss over that a little too quick, so I understand the confusion. So yeah, this is really important once you start working, or once you've worked with this for a while, you'll get so many files. It's really easy to lose track of them.
I'll speak from experience. I have like 500 items in at least 500 items in my content. So folders are huge.
Yes. Great. All right, let's reconvene at 2:10. I do want to make sure everyone gets a chance to take a breather every so often.
Yeah.
All right. Didn't see anything pop up in the chat. I guess we should get going again. I know that we can get Zoom fatigue if we just keep charging on covering stuff. And I know we get excited about it. So we want to try to tell you everything that we wished we knew when we first started this stuff. And yeah, it's just exciting to have all these new tools that come along with that as well. That's yeah, this makes it fun, very fun for us. Just as people are trickling back in here from taking a breather, I just like to make a shout out to AIFS, the Artificial Intelligence for Food Services group. That's a multi-campus collaboration that partly sponsors these workshops that we've partnered with. And so yeah, they're definitely deserving of a shout out. Some of you here might be a part of that group. All right, let's get going. So we already created our new feature. It should show up in our contents now. The one that I just created is here. Yours are going to just have it without the 5.0 at the end. And if you're not already in the page associated with that feature, go to that now. This is where you can set up your sharing settings, specifically if you want to share this with your organization or edit groups that you might want to share that with. I am not going to worry about that right now, and you don't need to worry about it either. We can just share it with ourselves because this is not going to go out to a group. It'll just be for the purposes of this training, but this is where you set your sharing settings for your features in here. But what we will want to do is go and we can click on data and then go to, actually, we can back up one thing here just so this is more clear. I'm going to go back to overview. I might want to click on point first and then go to data. You can go go about this a slightly different way, but this is a little bit more efficient. So click on the point and then data, and you'll end up in your point data table, but there is no table because we haven't collected anything yet. It's already enabled to collect photos and files and the point itself, but there isn't much for fields, and fields being the questions you might ask when you're out in the field. So I'm going to click fields at the top right hand side. And here, these are all the characteristics of the feature that you'll be collecting right now, and there isn't much there, at least that's that we're interested in yet. So we're going to add that now. And the way that you do that is you go up to click the plus add at the top left, and you'll have this add field show up. In here, it's very important in the field name that you don't have spaces. You'll see a lot of long-term GIS nerds like myself included that will add underscores between everything, but in the field name, this is essential. You can't have spaces. So in this case, we can either put tree type without a space or have an underscore between them. But then in the display name, you want to put this in as something almost like a question. So we could say type of tree.
Hey, Sean, I'm lost. I can't get back to the field maps training layer that I built.
Okay.
How do I do that?
Actually, you just caught me at a great spot, because I bet you're not the only one that had that problem come up, because I jumped right into it. Let me back up, because it also is good for, sometimes you'll get in here, you'll start to add something you don't want in here, and you'll say, oh, I don't want to do that. So you'll need to refresh and get out of it. The way you could do that is you can go back to content at the top of your screen. In my case, it's in a field maps training folder. You might have to click all my content at the top. Click your field maps training feature layer that you created right before the break. Take a second for it to load. We're going to be most interested in the points right now. You can do this for any of these, but we're just.
Yeah, I don't have that layer. I have open in map viewer, scene viewer, publish, create viewer layer.
Okay, something didn't finish up when you in the last section.
Do I have to do it all over again?
You might, or you can have a breakout group if you like.
Okay.
Okay, we can throw it in the chat. Andy can send you into a breakout room with Robert or Shane. They can cover it.
Exactly.
There we go.
Sean, can you make me host? I don't think I'm host.
Okay.
Only the host can manage breakout rooms.
Okay, I thought I did. I'll make host. Okay. Yes, there we go.
Yeah, Susan says she's got the same problem I do.
Okay.
All right.
So yeah, maybe both of you guys can go in there.
All right. Shane, are you good to go with them?
I am. Yep.
The only way that seems to normally happen is when you went in to create a new item, create a feature layer, build layer, points, lines, and polygons, create. You'll have all of these checked. Next, I'm going through the workflow really quick, just in case this is something for anyone else. Make sure everything's kind of in your map. Next, you have to put in all of the pertinent information and click done. I'm not going to do that because I've already done it, but then that should automatically add it to your content. So hopefully, yeah, that's, and if anyone else has questions about that, go ahead and raise your hand and you can put it in the breakout room. All right, for the rest of us, we're going to go into that hosted feature layer that we created. Again, we'll click on point, click on data. Alternatively, if you click data at the beginning, there'll be a little drop down on the top left-hand side that you can use to get to your point. and then go to fields. And we're going to add the field here. We'll click here, tree type. It doesn't matter, case, and then type of tree. This will be a string, just fine. That's a text format. And we don't really need 256 character lengths for an answer on that for just a type of a tree. So I'd put it to something like 50, because otherwise your attribute tables later on tend to be just a little bit unwieldy if you're using them outside of your GIS, say for analysis or something like that. So having a shorter length is nice. Default value, skip that for now. Allow null values is important, because sometimes there might be comments. You might have a comment field, and if you don't fill in, if you don't have this checked, then it's like, if you unchecked, it's like saying that it's required that you pick something in this, on this question, and that's not always the case. So allow null values, leave that checked, and then add new field. Take just a second and you'll see this show up in the display name and tree type down on the field name. Let's do this same process one more time. We're going to go to add, and sometimes repetition is the way you'll get used to things. So, but field name this time, we'll say other. And display name, other type of tree, because we're going to create a list for your tree types, and if you might want to have an extra category that isn't included. It is not a conventional tree, say a non-native species to California, and I'll put 50 in again. Leave the null values checked and add a new field. So now you'll see tree type of tree and other type of tree. So to make, actually, let's do one more just because it, well, for repetition again, add field name comments. Same thing, comments. And this time you can leave the length of 256. So there's enough room to actually put in a more meaningful comment. You want to allow it to be empty, so null values checked and add. And what we've now done is essentially added 3 feature characteristics that we can collect with our app. But and right now they're just a string, so it's not defined. And you might want it to be defined for efficiency purposes, so you can get people to if you're sending it out to a group, they don't have to type in oak every time. They can just click oak from a drop-down menu. And the way that we do that is we'll click on tree type right here. Move my zoom window so I can get at it. And then we're going to click create list at the top right-hand side. So this will give you a list of options that are associated with that field. So click create list. And right now we don't have to add a huge number of labels and codes. Just know that it's important that you don't have any spaces in your code. Your label can have spaces, but not your code. So I'm going to just add in a few here. Go ahead to go pine, and then pine, enter. You can either click enter or do the add +1, oak. If I want to have spruce, go ahead for yourself, just add a variety of tree types. If you have one that's around your house, maybe just think of what's surrounding your location right now and add in some names like that. Let's see. There we go. I just add in a few of these. I let all of you do that. The one thing that's important though is the last one that you add in, you're going to put in other type of tree. I already have, it remembers one of the last things I typed in, so I'll just click it here. But other type of tree needs to be your last label, and the code for this needs to be other. And the fact that this is other is really important, because the next step will break if it doesn't have that specific, even case sensitive name. And then once you've added in a number of these different tree types that might be around your house, I'll give you another minute. We'll go down and click save. I'll click save once you've entered in all of these, with other being the last code for other type of tree. Click save. Good. So now you have this list here that's set up for you. But you know what? You'll get hung up right here. So we have this. And what I mean by that is going to make it hard for adding new fields or adjusting anything else. Before we depart from this though, you can explore the description, editing the description and editing the field types. You can click those. You can add or adjust those kinds of things. We can have your list. If you want to edit that again, it'll bring you back to the screen that you were just at, or you can do the back arrow to get back out of this, or click cancel rather. And so now when we click cancel, it's going to jump us all the way back to our original feature pane. Otherwise, if you didn't go through those edit steps, you can just click the reload page and it'll bring you back here as well. But we're going to go back in. We're not done with the point layer here. So we'll go back, click on point layer again. Go back up.
The question came up a little while ago. Can you adjust the length of a string field after you've saved that field?
Yes.
50 to 100 or something like that.
Let me check. I think so. Let's go to fields. If I click on, say, my other type of tree that was 50, no, you can't. It's set. There's no editability there. Yeah, once you create a field, it is what it is then. So that otherwise you can make it editable. It's yes. You want it by default, it'll be editable, but the length of it, if you create it wrong, then you'll need to create another field and then delete the one that you have here, or delete this one first and then create a new field. Makes sense? So yeah, some of these things you just have to get it right to start with. So, but I now want to, I don't want to work with this here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and click the restore page, since I got into that other type of tree. Some of you might want back in here. I'm going to go to fields. And this time, other type of field, we want to make this conditional. So imagine this, when you're in the app, and this is really common, you'll see the utility of this with the collaborative list that I've created for all of you. You don't want to overwhelm the person collecting the data with tons of options that they don't need to have. So you can set it up, it's called cascading select, where you can select, say, the type of tree is oak, and if you select that, then it gives you the option of like coastal live oak, or you name it, cork oak, whatever type of tree you want to have in a cascading select list. We're not going to do that with all of the trees, but we're just going to do with one category being the other. So if you if you click other in the type of tree in your app, then the other type of tree option will come up on your mobile app to let you fill that in on your own. So for that, we'll click on other type of tree. And from here, oh wait, I just realized I am thinking out of turn. This is actually the next step of the exercise. My bad. I'm getting ahead of myself. We need to do this in the map viewer, or in the field, the mobile app online application for field maps. So this is fine here. There's not going to be a list. It's going to allow you to just create it on your own. So from here, I believe, let me double check the directions. Yeah, we go to map viewer. So other tree less than 50, good. Yeah, we're good. Now we can go to map viewer. Shane, were you able to help everyone in the breakout rooms? Might be muted.
Yeah, he did. He was magic.
He's always magic. It's incredible.
Now I can't find data at the top right of my screen.
Uh-oh. All right. Well, we're gonna move on to the map viewer now. And how we do that is we're going to go up to this shortcut at the top right-hand side of the screen and click the little cluster and go to map viewer. Sometimes I forget where one app takes off and one app like starts off. It's just, yeah, gets to be, I don't know. There's so many of them now. It's neat. I love the fact that Esri is always innovating and creating these new, like, more efficient workflow peripheral apps. But I can't wait until they go and consolidate them into one, like, kind of package workflow that lets you, choose your own adventure as you go within just one environment, maybe. I don't know, we'll see. But for now, we should be in map viewer now. I mentioned before, this is more or less the direction that Esri is going with their mapping environment, rather than the conventional map on ArcGIS Online. I'm going to just give you a super quick overview of this at the same time, and give some of you folks to get a chance to get caught up if you got off track in the breakouts and so forth. But what you'll see here when map viewer comes up is a list of options, of broad level options along the left side of your screen. If you're used to seeing these on like the traditional map viewer, they're across the top ribbon. Now they've set it up so you have the broader level, like adding data, saving, opening charts, those sites, things on the left side. And these are going to then activate a conditional ribbon that'll pop up on the right hand side of the screen. One thing that to be able to demonstrate how that works is we need to add data in before anything else. So in the layers pop up, you can click on layers on the left side. We'll go down and click add layer. And in your content, it should show the last hosted feature layer that you created, which would be your field maps training layer, and click on that. And you'll see all of the information, the metadata about this particular this layer again that you just created. So this is not important right now because you just created it, but sometimes if you're adding layers from elsewhere, say if you're searching for ArcGIS Online or something like that, then this is important. We'll click add to map. It'll take a second. You might have to click and drag this, but you won't see anything in California, particularly because we haven't added anything. That will come later. But once we have this in, we can then click exit out so we don't have to look at this. And then we can do the reduce on the left side and get it out. So then we can see the field training point layer, the line layer, and the polygon layer. Let's click the point layer on the top. So again, the way that was is with layers out. I'm going to close this, bring it back. If we were in the add layer options here, we'll reduce that with the little back arrow at the top left-hand side, and then it'll show the layers that you've brought into your project. You want to click on the point layer at the top. And what that'll do is bring up the conditional ribbon or the conditional side options on the far left. And those include properties for that point, styles. Style is synonymous with symbology. You'll see it in ArcGIS Online all the time. It'll go back and forth between those two terms, meaning the same thing. You have filter, effects, cluster, configure on pop-ups, which we'll do shortly, fields that you can configure a little bit, but you don't want to do that right now. You should have already set that up previously in ArcGIS Online. It's just more efficient, stable there. And then finally, edit is one of the ones that's down in the bottom. And let's cover those in about 5 minutes. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to get caught up, get their map viewer up, and then we can go into the hands-on stuff a little bit more. Sound good? You look at the chat, make sure we've got.
Okay, Sean, I'm back, but I'm not sure where I'm supposed to be on the sheet.
Okay, so do you have your features set up?
I don't know.
All right. Does Shane or Robert, are you familiar with?
I couldn't share my screen, so they couldn't help me.
Oh, you couldn't?
Yeah, I don't know what the heck's wrong with it.
Okay, shoot. So in the net, while everyone, we'll reconvene at 2:40, give everyone a break, and I will go back over the last little bit of the workflow to see if you can get this here right now. So 2:40 we'll get going again. Till then, I'll just recover what we just did there here. All right.
Did you do put the trees in, the tree layer in?
Yes. So
okay, that's what I haven't done. I'm at the click on point layer.
Click on point layer
At the bottom of page 11.
Let me look and I'll check to see if we're page. I had Zoom in the way. I'll just search click on layer.
Click on point layer is what it.
All right, I see where you're at.
And what I can't find is something that says data at the top right of my screen.
All right, here I can back up and show you where that's at. All right. So still see my screen here.
Yeah.
And do you have the layer here in your content, correct?
I have the layer open.
Okay, so I'm opening in that right now. Just take a second for it to open. For some reason, it's taking a while. All right, so you're right here.
I have opened in map viewer.
Okay, you're in map viewer then. Okay, that's a different place in the directions. So have you gone in and added your feature?
No, I don't. No.
Okay, so you're just,
So I have a feature layer.
okay.
I have, the points Pentagon. I made field maps training with the feature layer that says build the layer, put the points lines in, check the Z values. So,
Yep. So you just,
I
yeah,
hit
you
done.
got it. So you should be right here right now. So you shouldn't be in map viewer yet. You
I
should still
shouldn't be in
Arc-
map viewer.
No, you
Okay.
should be in ArcGIS Online still.
So I just need to close.
Yeah, close map viewer.
Okay. I don't know how to do that. So
Don't worry. You can either just
I'll
go back on
just-
your tab to ArcGIS Online. It's fine.
I'll just go to content.
Content, good.
Okay.
And then click on that layer, and this is what you should see.
Yep. Got it.
What it's talking about right now is you click on the point layer, like you saw where I did that down in the middle of the screen,
Yeah.
and then go up to data on the top right.
Point layer, go to data. Now I see the data when I went back to this thing. Okay. Yeah.
And then fields.
Fields.
And this is where you'll add in that information right here. We're gonna have to get going and get back to.
Okay, I can catch up here, I think.
What you'll do is you'll add a type of tree layer, add another type of tree layer, and those are the two main things that you have to do with the add button.
Okay.
Each time you'll have to do a refresh. Between them, you'll have to do a refresh. And you'll have to save at the bottom right-hand side.
Okay. All right, thanks.
All right, sure. Sorry, we're gonna jump ahead. We're gonna get going ahead of that here in a minute, but it's okay.
Okay, I've done that.
All right. Oops, sharing too many things. That's where we're gonna be going. And the
Okay.
next,
So you've all done all of page 12 then?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, we're gonna start going now again. So you can go on mute again, and then we'll yeah. We'll,
Okay.
Continue onward. All right. So everyone, so here's where we are at. Here we're in the map viewer. We brought in these so you can see what the conditions are. This one of the key things that you'll want to do is save. And save often and frequently is key. So go down to the save and open option on the left-hand side and click save and open. Click save. And it's going to give you a prompt that requires you to add in tags. So this time we'll type in something to the effect of map viewer for field maps. Because we're going to be creating the map here that's going to go into our field maps application, our mobile app. So here we put just the simple name in there. This one can have spaces for tags. I'll just put in training. And for my own reason, junk. And you could put in summary. I'm going to put it in my field map training folder, just like before. And I gave this kind of, to me, what is an intuitive name, map viewer for field maps. And you could say field maps training maybe, but something that like kind of that like hints at what part of the process we're in right now. And then I'm going to click save map. Some of ArcGIS's applications like ArcGIS Pro now automatically save stuff. These do not, these online applications. So say my power goes out, which happened to me the last time we did this workshop, and then there's like a few minutes of hurrying, getting caught back up on what you've done if you haven't saved what you've wherever you've been at. There were more than a few minutes. So now the map's saved. If it's not saved, it'll give a little blue dot next to the save and open.
Okay.
All right. So if you're let's see, if your mute's not on, if you wouldn't mind throwing your mutes on. I hear some background noise here. It's fine. Good. All right. So again, I mentioned that this is conditional. So we're going to click again over on the left side of your map viewer. You might have to toggle on and off your layer options to get them to come back up full in the right-hand pane, the conditional pane. And what I want you to do, and there's a lot of different ways of adjustments that we can do right now, one of which is we'll just kind of explore a little bit, but don't worry, we don't want to make too many changes. I'll explain why in a second. If we go down to the second one, the style, you can click style options. And if we click on the dot, you'll see this another pane of options that come up. This is useful for creating web mapping applications later on, but you don't want to change this very much right now. And the reason for that is that some of the shapes in here break field maps. Field maps just doesn't accept some points. They're just not cross-compatible. So if you say you go into Firefly and you put one of these in as your symbol, it's not going to work for you. It's the field maps isn't. And then once it doesn't work for you, then you have to come back to here and remove all of your layers and then reload them in and then start over again. So don't change the symbols too much. The one thing you can do, I'm going to X out of this and click it one more time. One thing you can do though is adjust the size, which is nice. I'd say like something like 30 something. And that'll give you it'll be more visible on your map. And then once that is done, it's been, the size is changed. Click done. It does accept the basic shapes though. The field maps does, just not some of the more extravagant points. And those can be changed later on in your web mapping application. You don't have to do it here. And then click done. Moving on downward, let's go down to one that's important, is your configure pop-ups. There it is, the little kind of target on the right in the center right side of your screen. Click that. And it's going to give you pop-up options for your training points. Usually you'll want to title these correctly in your original when you first build them, so they don't have like 5.0 after them or something like that. But you can adjust the point layers and add different title names, adjustment galleries. One thing that you can add to your pop-ups, which is neat, is click add. Here, I'll cancel out of that so you can see what I did. Add content. Go down and click text. And then add something to the effect of, say, click here for more So what I'm doing is I'm clicking in and a add-on to the pop-ups. So once we've collected features, then someone wants to look at them on a web app afterwards, or even in the field map application for reference, you can put in references in there, including hyperlinks. And the way you can do that is that highlight over the click here, click the hyperlink option forth from the right top, and then we can add in a link URL. If you'd like, you can search for one online. I just typed in California trees, and I know the Calscape trees is a good one. That's where a lot of the information for my collaborative feature layer came from. So I'm going to just Control C copy the URL, and this is not important that you get an exact URL or something specific right now, just as an example. And I'll go back to where I was at before. Control V and paste that in. So there I will have a hyperlink that's in, associated with each feature in the pop-up for those after they've collected. Unfortunately, I haven't found a way to add in a guidance pop-up, say a redirect to a website before you collect features. And I imagine that'll be forthcoming in the future. You can do that in Collector, but I haven't figured out how to do it here in Field Maps. And I mentioned Collector. I know not everyone's fully versed in all of the Esri apps. Collector is, I wouldn't say the predecessor to Field Maps, but it's another mobile mapping application that Esri designed, of which most of the functionality has been absorbed into Field Maps, but just not quite everything yet. But then again, Field Maps has more functionality in some cases. But anyhow, back to this. So I put the URL in here. Key is, very important, is you have to click the green check to save it. You just go down and click OK, it won't save. But after you've done the green check, click OK, and then your pop-ups in the future, anytime you collect data, will have that. You can click on that and it'll redirect someone to information about all the trees that might have been, the features of interest on your web map. Lastly, I'm going to go down. You can explore all of these in the future. There's again, some of these apps could be a whole course on themselves. But the one last one I would like to show you, though, is the edit option down in the bottom right hand corner. And we click on edit, and it'll let you edit or add features. We are not going to add features right now, but let's click add feature. And we can click new feature. So what you could do, and don't do this, don't click on the map, but you could click and add a feature. The problem why I say don't click and add a feature right now is that if you, I don't know if they fixed this glitch, but in the beta version of this, if you added a feature here before you added it in Field Maps, it would break Field Maps and you'd have to start over. So you don't want to add features here yet. You can add them later and you can edit them later, but you just can't do it before you start collecting features in Field Maps. But this is where you could do that, or you could edit features if that was what you needed. And we can maybe circle back to this later if we feel like it and we have time. I just want to show you that, though, because it is quite important and you can tweak your features. This is important in cases where you added a feature and then you realize that you were off a little bit, and you can go back to imagery and then readjust your points or change names and that sort of thing. Say you thought one type of tree was a different kind of tree and it wasn't, you can change names, that kind of thing too with the edit. So once we've done this, now we have our map. But we have one more thing that I'd like to do before we continue on to the field map application and going outside and actually collecting some stuff. And that is changing the base map. We're not going to go through all the options on this side, the map properties and so forth. But one thing is important is to change the base map in a lot of cases, particularly for field map data collection, because once you're on the ground, when you zoom in on something like this, it is not intuitive to where you're at. It's just 2/4 of a scale. But if you add in something like hybrid imagery is my personal favorite. So you see I clicked on base map, go down and click hybrid imagery. And now we'll actually have something Google Earth-esque that we'll have as our backdrop in field map. And we want to set the zoom rate roughly to where we're going to be. We have it on our map, and then click save one more time. And since we've already saved it once, we don't have to go through all the adding tags and so forth. Great. One more little set of steps and we can go out. We can take a break for a bit, go out and collect some data, and then we'll come back and we can finish off with Experience Builder and maybe a little bit of question and answer in ArcGIS Pro if people are interested. So, but from here, let's go up to the little cluster of points now on the top right-hand side. Click on this, and we're going to go to Field Maps. So from the shortcut for apps at the top right, and then Field Maps. All right, what it should do is bring up the last set of maps that you've worked with. I'm going to go with the Z Field Maps. I don't remember what this one was. It was recent, but the you should see in the top left-hand corner the one that you'll want, and we'll click on that. And it'll come up here. This now is, I have to reiterate this. This is not to be confused with Field Maps, the mobile application. Field Maps that you put on your phone or your tablet, this is a web mapping application, and that is a native app that goes on your phone. So native being the operative word of something that's completely independent of the web. It's running on your phone. This is the web application for Field Maps. What's on your phone is the native app for Field Maps. Is the best way to put it. The web map app here that we're looking at now, it has two key things that you'll want to you'll work with, and I'm going to show you the first one that we're not going to worry about right now, because it'll slow everything down. But I want you to know that it's there for you if you need it. It's specifically if you want to go offline. So if you want your mobile app to be useful, if you're going into the mountains and you won't have any connectivity for your base maps to download, you can click offline. You can have offline mode enabled. And we go down to map areas, click on this. Over to the right side, manage areas. Zoom into the area where you're going to be working. I'm going to zoom into my neighborhood, is right around here. Still closer. The ballpark of my neighborhood right here. And then you can create an area to be downloaded. Once you create that, then you go up to the side over here, or just on the left side of the window, and click the plus to sketch an area. And just click once and it'll put a square in that area. Now, if you click it again, you should be able to drag this around a little bit. You don't want to, if you make this a large area, by the way, it's going to be a lot of data that's going to be downloaded on your phone, depending on the resolution settings that you go with. And specifically the level of detail, the resolution setting could be adjusted here, where you can zoom it in so you don't cache everything that's imaginable on your phone. You don't really need global scale data for that position so much, as maybe just the finer scale. If it's a larger scale project, yeah, maybe larger up there, but this then would be just a package of data that you could download. When you would go to save it, you would enter a name for it, a different name. In this case, before you name it, you'd say, in my case, El Macero package.
Hey, Sean, can I interrupt
Yes,
just
go
for
ahead.
1 second? I see that Julia had a question about where she could find the hybrid imagery. I don't know if she still needs that, but that was a question she had.
Okay. Yeah, let me
Julia,
me-
were you able to find that, or do you still need help with that?
okay, I can bounce back. That was back when we were in Map Viewer.
She's saying that she doesn't have it, and it might be because of her UC Santa Barbara AGOL account.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yep. Yeah, that's a common thing. That's why we used to go with like, hey, anyone that has an ArcGIS on account, ArcGIS Online account, go ahead, come with your own account. And then that's why in the emails that I've sent out this week, I keep on recommending, yeah, even if you have an account, get one from us, because it's a common issue that either you don't have full analytical capacity with your licenses, or you don't have the full suite of online access or the apps that you want. But it's okay. You can watch, and it'll be, even if you don't have a hybrid imagery, it's fine.
Yeah, any of the base maps you do have access to, you should be able to continue these steps.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this is just for really for show and tell right now. You don't need to download this, but you would want to put in a name. Do not click save right now, because it can take several minutes, quite a while, for it to actually download it. It queue it up into your project, and then it takes longer later on for to do that process. So we just don't want to do that right now. So we'll back up then. So we won't do any of that. And in fact, I'll X out of this whole manage areas function. But that's how you set up those downloadable packages. And I'll show you later how you would bring those into your app, or just shortly from now. But then one more thing that we want to do is cover content in your app. There's really, other than setting up your downloadable background layers, the core functionality of ArcGIS Field Maps web app is designating the questions in the question order in your mobile app. So from here, I clicked content on the top left-hand side. I'm going to go down and click point. The point layer should be the first one in your layers that are available. And automatically it is showing the type of tree. I must have done this earlier and it was automatically set up. If not, I can just X out of it, X out of it. And then you'll see, the way you'll first see it is that it pops up on your left side of your screen. So you'll have type of tree and other type of tree. What I'll have you do then is go over to type of tree, click that, drag it up and drop it, or just click it or double click it and it should add it in. Actually, yeah, you have to double click it the first time. So you added that one in, and so it's got the no value included there. And then we'll take the other type of tree, click this, drag it over and put it below. I just realized I opened up the Z project. I should have opened up the first one that had the comments, but it's all the same. This is my practice one from this morning to make sure nothing was broken since the last time I worked on this app. Once the other type of tree is in, we're going to want to set this up with a conditional expression for having it pop up on your mobile app. The way you do that is you click on it here and you'll see the properties pop up on the far right side. And at the far bottom, you'll see conditional visibility. And below that, add expression. So again, you have tree type in your forms. Your other type of tree is next. We've clicked on that and we have properties. We're going to go down and add expression. The far bottom right-hand corner. And here, I'm going to move my zoom out of the way again. It's always where I don't want it, seems like. So I'm going to type in or click just once. Don't double click, just one click on type of tree. You see the field and then the code. Click the code just once and it'll pop up in the expression up here. You'll do 2 equal signs and then a quotation mark, and it'll give you 2 quotations. And then type in other. Case sensitive, it's from, it might seem like a day ago that I talked about it, but where I said earlier, when you put in the code or the the field name or the field code, it had to be other and it was case sensitive. This is going to refer to that. Another way that I can find out more about that is say what I'm telling it is that my other type of tree is going to only pop up conditionally if the tree type answer is other. And I'm going to click OK here. Another way you can look at that too is if I click on this again and I go click on it, I can go down to the oh, I already have one. I'm doubling up my expressions, but that's fine. If I click on this expression again, oh, it's checked on. I can do the 3 little dots on the side. I can edit that. If I'm not sure what the other would be, I can go to the feature other trees layer and do the little pencil on the side. No, cancel. I thought it would give me the table. I don't recall where that one's at, but anyways, we have if you remember what the field was you added, that shouldn't be an issue. Now this will only pop up though if you've done that, where again you tree type equals quotation marks other, case sensitive. And once we've done that, we are going to be good to go. From there, oh, this is one thing that, oh man, I almost always forget this, is you have to go up to the little save option at the top. Oh, and by the way, some of you will have to add the comment over in there too. So if I back this up, oops, I'm gonna save. I don't have any more fields, but you might have comments that you want to drag over there because this is a different version for me. But once you've saved this, you up at the top right hand corner, then this will be actively available in your mobile app, which I'm going to bring up right now. I gotta bring this in on the Zoom and share my screen. Just one moment. I have to go to Zoom on my phone, join meeting. Oh, dang it. Come on, just a second. Sorry, y'all. I thought I had it already bookmarked, but it didn't come up yet. I disconnected. Outlook, Zoom. There, I'm joining. I'm going to stop sharing because I'm going to share my mobile app from my phone. Good. Share contents. Screen. Good. Is it sharing yet?
It's not sharing yet, Sean.
Oh, okay. I tested this earlier to make sure it would. Let me double check. Let me go to the Zoom again.
The best laid plan, Sean. The best.
I
laid
know.
plan.
I went through a trial of this earlier to make sure that it would share content. Screen. All right. Everything on your screen, including that will be recorded. Okay. There we go. I think it's starting. Finally. Okay, got it. So this is going to be iPhone, from an iPhone perspective. It's close enough with an Android as well. I'm going to bring up my field maps. Oops, let me cancel that. Go back to the maps itself. When it first comes up, it's going to look a little bit different for you. You're going to have something like this on an iPhone. On an Android, it might be all white. You'll have at the top left-hand corner on an iPhone, you'll have your account information. If I click on that, This is what you'll see on an Android. It's on the right top side, but it's intuitive enough. I bring this up, the count information just now, not to change anything right now, but for the purpose of noting that the provider, where it says integrated, if you wanted to connect your phone to something like a bad elf, this is where you could add something like a bad elf in there to augment the GPS positioning on your phone. You also can change your units and those sorts of things on here, but that's the key thing. Yeah, the provider and the units are what you want to have done. But this is going to be where you'll mostly work at. And it currently recognizes the map that I was just working in. For you, you might have to go in and search for your map beta viewer, but instead, go ahead and search for collaborative. I'm going to search it on my own. Collaborative field maps practice, and throw it in the chat if you don't get that. So if you've brought up field maps on your phone, search for collaborative field maps practice. If you are associated with the UC organizational account, this should come up on your phone. If you're not on the UC ANR enterprise account, just go and use the web map that you just created shortly ago. Throw it in the chat if anyone can't find that. I want to make sure that it's correctly saved. It should still be, but I want to just check. All right. We can problem shoot that here shortly. Okay, I can type it in there. So collaborative, do not have it. Okay, I'm going to check. I'll make sure. I'll come back to that at the end. I'll share it after I show you the steps here. Once you get into your map, it should automatically default. I see. Let's see. I see yours. Okay, so this would be the same for yours or mine. The way that I can solve this really quick is
It is here. I had the same issue. It doesn't pop up. The only thing that pop ups, like the map itself, it's mine. But if you type in the search, you can actually have access to a lot more. So I do see yours after I type in the search.
okay, good. So yeah, you type in collaborative. Let me check. I gotta look to make sure that the right name I'm using. And oh, did I lose my, oh no. I'm gonna go back to start sharing again. Let's switch in between apps. There it goes, it'll go again. But in the meantime, what I'm doing is, because this is gonna make it more fun for you when you go out here in a few minutes to search for features. All right. Good. Back to field maps. And hopefully if you type in collaborative field map practice, field maps practice. All right, unless I type out, that should be it there in the chat. All right, so hopefully that comes up for you. Just note that if you are going to download that background layer, which I don't have it set up to do, that's where you would click those 3 dots on the right side next to it. You can reload your map if it's been updated recently. Oh, and you can add offline data now. So if I clicked on that, don't do this right now, but if I clicked on that, it would allow me to download an area on my map for reference. I have to zoom into it quite a ways to have that happen, but you can set that up to have a downloadable background area. Again, that's going to take several minutes to do, so don't do it, but those 3 little dots next to it is where it'll allow you to do that. However, what we can do is hopefully you all are able to get to that. If not, use your own, it's fine. Click on your web map and it'll come up. In just about 2 minutes, we'll break and you can go out and collect some features. And the way you do that is you click the plus sign and you can scroll on your screen if you'd like, just dragging your finger around to get to a point. You can go down to the bottom and see where it says type of native tree at the bottom. I'll click on that and it'll give a big old list of different options. And if I click on, I'm going to just say redwood because I have a redwood right in front of my house. I'll click on redwood. If I scroll down further, it'll give me an option of type of redwood, or if I drag it up, I get type of redwood. Click on that, then I have a conditional set of values for that. It's a coastal redwood in my case. The same effect would happen for those of you that are just using your own one that you just created, and you click on other, and then you should have have the other show up. Just for the fun of it, if you'd all like to use this one for now, that would be great, because then we can show you the kind of the crowdsourced web map that will come out of it here soon. Once you're all done with that, you can click take photo to take a photo of the trees. I'm not gonna do it here inside the house too much, but if I did, I could click on the take photo and then click OK for allowing, and it'll just show me the options for that, or cancel it if you don't want to have a photo. That photo will append to your point features in your map as a pop-up, or you can add attachments as well. For now, once you're done with this, then you can click submit. I'll just click submit for now. It'll take a moment and it'll pop up. You can edit, copy, or delete that later on after you've done this. Or we can click the X to get out of it. One more thing that I'll have you know, and this is one of Maggie's favorite ones, is instead of doing clicking just updating a point or adding a point, you can click on the little 3 dots to the right side. Oop. Oh, wait a minute, where's the line? I'm going to cancel that one. Discard this. I should have a line, update point. Why don't I have lines that are available? Those 3 dots should give me the option to do streaming collection as well. What the heck? Maybe this layer only has point data for now. Well, on your app, because you have points, lines, and polygons, if you clicked on that, then you can have streaming collection available as well. I'm going to cancel and discard that feature. Click on layers, you can see different layer options as well. Or you can get back to your apps. You can click on the top right for more information, changing base maps, legend, markup, all those kinds of things, but those are not too important. For now, let's go outside. You can practice with both your app and this one. We'll go out for 15 minutes, reconvene at 3:30. And if you're using this map, those features will get updated into this map that's associated with it. And it's going to be the last step of the exercise today. So you'll see, this is from the workshop earlier this year. You can practice both your own and this, and you can experiment with the streaming option where it lays a breadcrumb trail or a line feature behind you. And just this layer just doesn't happen to have that right now. All right, good. Any questions, throw them in there. Otherwise, let's meet back in about 15 minutes. Give you all enough time to go out and collect some features. We'll hopefully in relative real time, we'll see those pop up on the map here. Kind of excited to see where the those points show up on your map, and have fun. Again, ask questions in the chat if you have any or any comments.
Hi, Sean.
Yes.
I put a question in the chat, and it's actually about the page that you're on right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Z field maps practice, were we supposed to have made that in,
No, this is, I just put the Z at the beginning because I've done this so many times. I didn't want to have, you can't
Oh.
use the same name again. But for
gotcha.
you, it'd just be field maps practice, or it is whatever the layer is that you created earlier.
Got you. And then, so I'm looking at that and I see like, I'm not sure why, but I have multiple point layers and multiple line layers, even though I think we only made one point layer with,
Yeah.
so I'm like, one of them actually contains the tree questions,
Are
like species and other, and then the rest are just kind of empty.
weird. Huh. I don't know how that would happen. Maybe Shane has an idea, but
If it doesn't matter, I can just delete them.
yeah, you can just delete. Yeah, I guess that's that's the workaround. I don't
Yeah.
know why that would happen. I haven't had that happen before.
Um, well, I just obviously do too much. But then the other question was, so I'm looking at the polygon layer and I missed the step where you connect what we're looking at here on the desktop to the mobile app. Like I pulled up the collaborative in the mobile app and added points to that, but I'm not sure what happens in between.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can show you that right now. Let me see if I still have it up. So,
Okay, thank you.
oops, where's it at? All right, so the online field map one should look like this. I have Z for mine showing, designating that it's first. I'll use the other one, the map viewer for field maps. So the way what you would do in the online setup is this is where you can set up your offline use, where you can enable offline use. And to set your map area, if that's necessary, you can leave that blank for now. But more importantly, you would go to your content, and in your point layer, this is where you can drag and drop over your type of tree question, your other type of tree question, and your comments question.
So just really quick, I'm where you are, but what I see is canvas is empty. And I don't see like a right hand or left hand menu that shows me the points in, or the point layer. Like I'm in content and I'm looking at kind of a blank, it just says canvas is empty and select an item, but I'm not sure where to drag and drop from.
Oh,
Okay. Oh, weird. I wonder what happened. Maybe something happened when the features were created earlier.
does your web map have layers in it that feeds into this?
Yeah, so if I look at overview and I'm looking at my web map, it's the practice. It says map viewer for field maps workshop that I named.
Yeah.
And then it has a point layer which we made, I think. Yeah.
Is this Suzanne?
Yeah.
Do you want to go to a breakout session and I can see if I can help you real quick?
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
And here's something too, before you go, and this goes for everyone. IGIS has office hours on Mondays and Tuesdays. If you go to the IGIS website, and you can just search UCANR-IGIS office hours, it'll get you to the form, and you can sign up for office hours, and we can cover more questions then too if we run out of time here today.
That's a good point.
Yep. All right. So let's see. I'm going to quick show everyone now, assuming everyone's kind of trickled back in from stretching their legs.
Oh, wait. Can someone please put Suzanne into a breakout session for me?
Is Andy back yet?
I don't know.
Because I made him the host.
Okay. Let me see. Let me see what I can do.
And let me look on the participants.
It looks like
Andy
you're the
left.
host.
Now I'm the host again.
Yeah,
Andy
you're the
left.
host, Sean.
All
Can
right.
you make Robert the host and he can drop me in?
Yep, that's what I'm doing.
Okay. Robert, if you don't mind putting Suzanne, is it Pierre?
Yep, it's cute.
Yeah. Can you put Suzanne and I together and we'll get that? I'll see if I can help.
And the next thing I'm going to, And the next thing I'm going to show is not going to be, it's going to be mostly info for a minute. So,
Okay.
all right, great. Hopefully it's an easy solution. All right, so we have been working in Map Viewer. So it looked like something like this for you. This is without the, without features before you added anything in there. In my case, this is, let's see, which one is it? Here is a map viewer of those collaborative tree points. And if I refresh this now, anything that was added will show up in here now. If any, assuming some of you, yep, there's some new ones that are in here that weren't there before. So these would be all the points that we collected, including one that I collected just shortly ago, right in the break. So here's a redwood tree right in front of my house, and you can see at the top it gives information about this, as well as the accuracy and all of that kind of thing. And since we're in Viewer, this is where we could then continue to adjust the pop-ups of the points if it going down to the pop-up options and adjust those the pop-up information that's available if you want to change what shows up on here. But we're not going to do that right now because it's not that takes some time to work out. But yeah, anyways, you can see this is the data that's come in near real time, and you can see so collected by P.S. Hernandez down in the what's that, Monterey, yeah, almost Santa Cruz area. So we see some of the data that's popped up onto the map here. But the next step is to actually create something a little bit more than this. And this is where you can add in more information like what I've done here, where I added layers for the US states and then filtered them. And then I added in Mexico area down below, doing a little bit of cartographic effects to adding in this stuff, but we can also do it in the next final step of this workshop, which is fun too. But if you wanted to do it here, you go into add layers, adjust, and go to either Living Atlas or ArcGIS Online. And the way I added in the US background is that I just search for US states. And you can see US boundaries, no coastlines. And let's see, I just need states. US states generalized. So this is what the layer is that's behind here, and that you can add that in if you wanted to, but I'm not going to deal with that right now because it's going to take a fair bit of time. We don't want to, where that's kind of stuff was covered in our ArcGIS Online class and the configurating. The difference here is that it's just on the left side and the right side as you go back and forth between style and so forth and transparency and so on to get this result. Next, where we're going to go is to something like this. This is going to be the experience builder. And of course, yeah, again, this is just info only. This is what we're working toward with the data that we have. We can add in both the native trees of California point layer, but we can also add in your data that you can you've collected on your own into this map. So let's do that right now. We're going to go up to, let's see which one of the tabs. I got so many of them open. Okay, I haven't collected anything in here, but this is the one that I was working on. Let me just add a couple points in there, even though it would break it on my, nope. I'm going to add a couple features just so I have it a feature on my map. I told you not to do it, but I'm going to do it here. It doesn't have the drop down options like the other one does. But I'm going to just add one feature in there just for now. And so that there we go. I'm going to go down and save the project. I'm going to remember this is my map viewer for field maps. I'm going to go up to the dots on the top right-hand side, click on this and go to Experience Builder. So go ahead and do that. Click on the shortcut options at the top right and go to Experience Builder. And you should see in the top left-hand side the most recent map you've worked on. If you don't have it, since we've all worked on something today, this should show up. Otherwise, you might have to search or adjust some of these other options. Fortunately, it should be right there, so we'll click on that, and it will pop up. Does anybody have trouble? Oops, this is not what I wanted. So you might not have that option. So what you'll do actually is create new. I forgot, I created that earlier. So you'll go to Create New, the top right-hand side. Go to Full Blank. So notice there's a whole bunch of templates here, a whole bunch that have different options. You can go down to the microscope to preview what they look like, or not microscope, but the magnifying glass to preview them. But for right now, we're just going to save a little bit of time, and we could go with the full blank, but just know that there's all these other configured templates with infographic layouts that were already built in to save you time. But in the full blank, we'll just click this and click Create. And I'm going to show you how they, for you, you'll see something a little bit different here. You might see this. I'm going to go down to the question mark at the bottom and show help guide. For your first time logging in, this is probably what you'll see is get started. And don't do it now because it takes a little bit of time, but you can click Start Tour. The cool thing about this is you have this question mark or the Start Tour option with all these different templates that you saw in the window before. And there's similarities between how to add data and how to put in your widgets and so forth, but enough difference that this Start Tour for each one of the templates will help you get along and get set up pretty well. But we're going to skip this right now because it'll be a bit redundant for what we're doing. Again, not unlike Map Viewer, in the Experience Builder, you'll have your general options on the far left, very general, like insert, page, data. You can have multiple pages, by the way, almost like a website. And you can have themes, and then you'll have conditional options that will be related to those on the far right side. To make this, to kind of get things like get a head start on setting up your web mapping application is what this is building, or something. It's a web experience. We'll go down to data and click add data. So that you see this little kind of stack of plates on the left side, go to add data there. And the most recent map that you worked on should appear on the top left-hand side. And click this. And then down at the far right-hand corner, there's a done, and then check that. But you'll see that nothing pops up in your center window. Don't worry about that, because that was just loading data into this project, so it's handily there available for you if you want it. The next step is to go down to the theme. Is the bottom left, and I kind of like dark. You can pick any one of them, but I prefer the dark theme. It just gives a nice effect with the background and everything that we have here. And then finally, we'll go up to page and then the plus, and the plus is where you insert your widgets. And just like it says in the center, or like you can do this, choose a page template or drag a widget here. That's what we're going to do, is we're going to drag the widget over. And the first one we want to do is the map widget. So I'll drag that in, maybe set it up in the corner, drag it down so it covers up most of the window that we're looking at here, or all of it. But you see it's not the map you want, but that's okay. It's really easy. Again, this is conditional. Once this is activated, denoted by the fact that it has the little vertices along the outside edges, it should show up in the conditional window to the right. and you click select map. And from the type, you can click the map that's available there and it'll automatically come up. Just a side note here, this is kind of neat. I like, this is nice compared to the traditional old way of doing it, is that you can actually customize your initial view. So you can click on customize and modify, and it lets you zoom in or adjust it here, and then click OK. And that's the view that'll automatically come up when your map comes into this window. This is, again, this is going to be a whole course in computer cartography. We have a cartography course coming up, mostly focused on ArcGIS Pro soon, but we do have time to just create a map for what we want here. Another something that we might want to do is add a little, to add data. So this is actually similar to the traditional way of doing things. We have this map that we just created here. And before we go, let's save, because it's always important to save as often, frequently as you can. Go up to the top right-hand corner, click save. Good. So it's saved this new map. We might have to change. I don't know why it didn't give me. Oh, we have to change the title over here. We might want to drag over that and say our, I don't know, California tree collection. Good. And then after that, so after this is saved, we won't lose this after it's saved. But the thing is this, I mentioned earlier that this is the final design kind of phase. The web mapping application is the kind of the fully functional, including your legends and all that kind of thing. But the map viewer is where you actually you can add design and other things to your map. So on your tabs above, you should have the map view of that. So if I go back one level where we were just at before, we can add in more data. So let's go in to the add layer, click add layer. And here it's defaulted to my content, but we don't need that. Let's go to my organization. And this is only, by the way, going to work for those of you that are a part of the UCANR organization. And I'll search for collaborative. That should get me close enough. Uh-oh, it's not shared. I can fix that really quick though. In my content, I'm going to go to the field maps. I want to make it so you guys have some nice maps that you can see for yourself at the end. Where is the collaborative field maps practice? That's a web map. Native trees of California, I think, is the layer. Yes, that's the layer. I'm going to share this with the whole organization. Oh, it should. Oh, I see. Okay, I just had the name wrong. I understand now. I thought it had the same name. So instead, you'd put in native. So back to your map viewer, native trees of California. I think I had the underscore. I'm just do native trees should get me close enough. There it is. If you type that in, if you're part of our organization and you click on it and add to map, you'll see all of the points that were just selected. You can then X out of that if you wanted to. You could adjust the style of that. So we have the native trees layer here at the top of your layers now. You don't need to do this, but I could do it just for the sake of making it the size a little better. Enter and save. Done. I know if you're not following along with all of that, don't worry. I'm just getting a map. But for those of you that would like, you can go from your experience builder back to your map viewer, search in your organization for native trees of California, add that into your map, then go down and save. And I'm doing this workflow not necessarily just to have an aesthetic design like improvement here, but for understanding that now, if I have saved this here and I do a refresh, you'll see the base map then get populated with that new layer. There you go. So see how you don't add in the features to the map here, you do it at the earlier building process. This is the like kind of the final design part of it. Now that we have all those in here, this is where we can add more widgets, like a legend, for example. You can scroll down the option of here, maybe it's up higher. Oh, it is way high. I can click and drag that over, and you'll see it's not populated to start with because the legend now being active is conditionally shown on the right side, but it doesn't have the map designated. So we're going to click from the source. It says none. So we're going to click map. And there we go. It shows the native trees of California, the field training points, the line, and the other features, all of the available information associated with what's available on this map. By the way, you would also go back to here to change your symbology now. I mentioned earlier you don't want to change it before you did your field data collection because it could break the Field Maps app, the mobile app. But once it's already collected, then you can change it to your heart's content, as long as you're not going to keep on reusing that using it actively in the field all the time. So after the project is over, for example. There's other workarounds around that too. If that is an issue, you can just get us on an office hours. It's not that hard. But now that we have the legend on the side, we might want to add a title at the top, which is fairly easy. Just same workflow. We got to scroll down a ways because we want a text. We drop that at the top somewhere. Oops. Oh, sorry. I just forgot. I have to drag and drop it. It's a little different. Drag and drop it up to the top somewhere. It's not going to be the kind of the size or effect that you want to start with, but we can adjust that in a moment. So I'm just going to type in trees of California. Just a placeholder for a title. Then once I have that, I can highlight it, but I already have all the options available on the side here. But I can change the size. You can change the text type, because once this title is active, the conditional pane on the right is going to be available. And I'll type in something like 25. I don't know what the right size is, and click enter, and then it'll adjust it. And 25 is too small. Let's make it 35. Enter. Maybe make it bold with the B there. Might want to center it. And after that, maybe it's not going to show up. It's only going to be white on white. By the way, if I click off of it, it's going to be off, but I have to click back on to reactivate. But it's going to blend in too much to the background. So what I can do is go over to, once it's activated, go to Style. And in the background, I can just change it. So Style, and then scroll down about 3/4 of the way. You can change the background to something more highlighting, like black. Adjust it a little bit. You can add in more text boxes. But anyways, here we go. And we have a map that's resembling what I showed you earlier. Again, if you wanted to do this kind of, lastly, let's do this. I'm gonna I'll share this with everybody right now, and I'll show you the steps that are important. First, I'd want to save it. Successfully saved. Next, I would go over to the 3 dots on the right top side, drop down, and then change sharing settings. There's going to be a share option here. Click this. I'm going to share this with everybody. Oops. Zoom is in the way. I'm sharing it with everyone and then saving this. Good. Now, if I go back to the experience builder where I was just at, this should be it. Yep. I can click on preview. Actually, publish first. You have to click publish. Once it's published, I can click the preview option. That's what the map's going to look like. I'm going to copy this, Control C, and I'm going to throw it in the chat real quick. Enter. Oh, did I just answer just to Suzanne? I did. I meant to do it to everybody. So if you go to that now, you should see that map, and you can put that in your web page builder, site builder, WordPress, whatever it is. Just you could email it to your mom, and they could open it up. And this then is active as long as it's shared with everybody. Hopefully, unless there's some underlying layers that are not letting it be displayed. But that is the workflow for getting your all the way from A to Z, creating your feature, setting it up in a web map, adjusting it in your Field Maps online app, collecting it on your mobile app, and then finally this last design phase for showing it there. Let's see, I'm seeing creating map failed on black background. Okay.
I have not seen that. Robert, have you ever seen creating map failed?
If you're using
no, I can't say that I have.
that, let me know if anyone, it might be a Chrome versus, I don't know, whatever the other options are that are out there. Yeah, Microsoft Edge, that kind of thing. Chrome, I think it should bring it up. Okay, weird. Well, maybe we have problems. That's what okay, there's a number of people seeing that. Maybe I needed to save it again somewhere else. That's a possibility. After I did the sharing settings, I saved it. I might have to go through the whole chain all the way from there to map viewer and save it again. Oops. Anyhow, while I'm doing this, I just I want to mention that I think Ben will be sending out an eval form to all of you. If you wouldn't mind filling it out, that would be fantastic. We're always evolving our workshops and trying to improve upon them. This is a little bit better than the last time, and the next time will be a little bit better, partially because of all the great comments we get from everybody. And it also lets us keep records and showing that we're actually doing some good work and engagement and that sort of thing. So please fill out the evaluation form when you get it. So now that that's been saved there, go to Experience Builder. It says saved and published. I have no idea. Here, let me bring up the preview again and see if I can replicate the result. Control C, put it in a different browser that won't be logged in. Oh, it says I have to sign into ArcGIS Online. Huh. Interesting. I wonder if that's just the folks. I think the issue there is I'd have to go back into all of the layers that are included in here have to be shared to everybody. That's the solution. So it worked for some people, it didn't work for others. I love Shane saying that GIS sometimes is an exercise in insanity, because it'll work the same time. It'll work for you fine 4 out of 5 times, but one time do everything else the same, it will it just won't work. I don't know why that is. So with that, I know that a lot of people are probably ready to kick off their weekend. If you look at the exercise, there's a bonus section at the very bottom. We covered all of this stuff, maybe not verbatim, but pretty close. Covered experience builder, the key fundamentals. There's an optional section at the bottom with using your data in ArcGIS Pro. I'm gonna let everyone ask any questions they want right now if they want to leave, and then afterwards it'll take maybe 5 minutes for those of you that are interested to I can show you how to import this type of data into your ArcGIS Pro workshops or ArcGIS Pro projects.
Nice.
And it looks like from what I'm seeing in the chat that the issue with it not showing up is because it's not an IGIS versus not IGS account. Oh, and Andy threw in the evaluation form in the chat.
Wait, yeah.
Great. Anyone has to add? Shane, Andy, Robert? I know all these guys are working behind the scenes, helping people out.
I've got nothing, Sean.
Awesome. Cool. So again, if any of you want to hang out, I'm going to bring up ArcGIS Pro and I'll show you how to import this type of data into Pro. Otherwise, all of you have a great weekend.
Thank you, Sean. You too.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Sean.
Very welcome. I see folks are hanging out. So this won't take long, just a few minutes, if that. And I know that, again, I know a number of you were in the Pro workshop just a couple weeks ago, and this is one of the really, really cool functions of Pro is integration with ArcGIS Online now. And this is how it works. I'm going to just bring up an ArcGIS Pro project. Takes a second to come up. This is the most time-consuming part almost, is bringing up the app and starting it and then getting and then downloading the data. I'm going to go to my map. I'm going to create a new map. I put it somewhere on my computer where I can delete it later because I won't need it. I always have a trash folder in my C drive. Okay. Let's call this field maps example. Click OK. It'll automatically create a database in there, set up a basic map. So this is only going to work for those of you that have an organizational account, that like the one that we that I set up the California trees layer in. And so what I'm going to do then is go up to the top of my map where it under view. I might have it already open because I have so many Zoom tabs open right now. Oh, I just have history. What for you, what you'd want to do is bring up your catalog pane and it'll pop up on your far right side. Under catalog pane, we're going to go over to portal. Click, and it's going to take a moment. And it automatically brings up my content, but it's not going to be my content you're looking in for this. It might be the organization's content. So I'll click here. And Let's see. So this is, let's see how far back. I thought it might be really close to the top. Trying to remember what the name of the layer was. Trees of California, was it? Just gonna search trees. What was the name of that layer? I can look, because I still have it active. That was, oh, native trees of California. That was it.
There you go.
That's why I'm not seeing it. See, my brain's fried here after chatting for 2.5 hours. If I click on, there you go, native trees of California. So if you search for that in your ArcPro under portal, I'm going to click on that and right click actually and add to current map. It's going to take a moment. You can see them all pop up. So we're in the same symbology as that we're in the map. This is one key element. We have to go over, oops, go to properties of the feature. Where is that? That was is under cache. I'm trying to remember. Oh, cache, there it is. Okay. Don't cache any. So what I did is I went to the point layer properties, go to cache, and then don't cache any data locally. The reason for this is it's going to hang up your project. If you click the don't cache locally, it'll always interact with the data online. And then as soon as that data is updated online, it'll update on here. If you change or update it here, it will be reflect on your be online as well. So this is how you can bring it in and then have this in your personal projects in ArcPro, because there's a lot more cartographic design options that you might want to use it for here. Say if you're using it for a publication, just as a project, and each time you open up Pro, anytime that anyone out in the field is collecting data, it will automatically update to this. If I go over to data source, you can see that the native trees here, it's showing the source of the ArcGIS on net in Amazon Cloud, where ArcGIS hosts its data for you. So there you go. That's all there was to it. That's just a kind of quick and easy way to get this data in your personal projects. And it took me 5 minutes exactly. Great. Hopefully that was useful for y'all. And again, thanks for coming, and don't forget to fill out the evaluation, and I will send out a recording of this to everyone next week.